Today is Saturday, the 24th of January 2026, and we're gathered here for the 216th session on mindfulness for beginners. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to, with great respect, welcome Venerable Homagama Dhammakusala Thero, representing the Nisaranawane Forest Monastery, to today's session. And I also welcome all the organizers and all the participants taking part in this session via Zoom and Facebook today. This is a session where we encourage participants who feel able to share their camera feed to be present and visible if they wish. Many of us do that. It helps create a sense of community and can also help Bhante feel connected to us during his instruction. With that, I would now like to invite Venerable Dhammakusala Thero to start today's program with our in-session mindfulness practice, our usual way of starting these sessions. Over to you, Bhante, and much merits.
Thanks, Arosha. Hello, everyone. Let's start today's session with a mindful sitting practice. For this, you can turn on video and join more actively if you wish. We simply sit comfortably. We gently close your eyes and bring our attention to the present moment. And when you do that, you can feel your body. You can feel the surrounding sounds. Simply notice them for a moment. We try to anchor our attention to the prominent bodily sensation that you can feel. Mostly the breathing. And some of you can feel it closer to your nostrils. Some of you can feel it in your belly. Simply observe and see the prominent breathing sensation. We try to hold our attention with that sensation, and time to time, various other things like thoughts, future planning, sleepiness, irritations in your body, these things come, but among them, we try to repetitively return our attention to the selected sensation. You can feel how the breath goes in. You can feel how it comes out. Let's continue for a few more minutes. Okay, everyone. That's our time to do a mindful session today. This is just to give you an idea so you can practice on your own. With that, Arosha, you can take over.
Much merits to you, Bante. We now come to the part of the session where we invite Venerable Dhammakusala Thero to deliver a short talk based on topics that have been suggested by participants and chosen for each 2-week period. So today we have a new topic, and I'm going to now invite Venerable Swain Hansa to deliver his talk on that topic based on a quotation by Senno Rikyu. Over to you, Bante. Much merits.
Yes, so we have a new topic for the current week. And if we think about this, I'm sure most of you know the idea about tea meditation. In Japan, tea is not just a beverage. Instead, they approach this in a meditative manner. So, preparing the tea and drinking the tea, that is considered as a meditation, and you simply do it paying attention to the process, whether the preparation or the drinking. You try to pay attention to the process and see how these small actions are done. So, the basic idea of tea meditation is to do these small actions with full awareness. It's not a complicated process, it's a simple process. And that simple process, they try to do it with full awareness. Each and every action should be done with awareness. That's the idea behind Japanese tea meditation. Now, when we think about the given topic, you can see an insightful idea based on the tea meditation practices. And it says, though many people drink tea, if you do not know the way of tea, tea will drink you up. That's the idea. That's the quote. Now, what's the meaning of this? It feels like it talks about the tea meditation, drinking tea. And we know how to drink tea, but the tree will drink you up. That's the idea it says, right? So basically, the idea behind this is simply the way of life. If your habits, if your thoughts, if your actions, if you don't do them with awareness, with attention, then without you even knowing, you become overwhelmed by them. There are many thoughts in your mind, you don't know which one to choose or which one to execute. Many habits are formed and you are overwhelmed by those habits. And sometimes we move our bodies in a compulsive manner. Most of these movements are not intentional, right? So that way The T represents our habits, our thoughts, our actions, our words, these things. And if you don't attend them with mindfulness, then what will happen is that these things will overwhelm you. Your own thoughts will overwhelm you. Your own habits will overwhelm you. Your own words, actions will overwhelm you. That risk is there, right? So that's why they take this simile of tea and they try to convince an insightful idea about the way of life. The way of tea is the way of life. You drink tea, many people drink tea, but if you don't know the way of tea, then the tea will drink you up. If you don't know the way of life, then life will consume you. That's the idea. So if you attend to things carelessly, then that very approach will create this difficulty in your life. You attend to things carelessly, and those things start consuming you little by little. Now, for example, let's say our thoughts, if you attend to them carelessly, then those thoughts can easily overwhelm you. We see such people quite often these days. Their thoughts have taken over and they become slaves to those thoughts. Sometimes we say intrusive thoughts. There are certain intrusive thoughts are there. Sometimes suicidal thoughts come. Sometimes certain thoughts to harm others and various fears, dark memories. These things are created in the mind. So you can see the thoughts are good, the thoughts are useful. But if you don't attend to them carefully, then those thoughts can overwhelm you. They can easily overwhelm you. When you think about things like rumination, those thoughts, they have taken over. This person is there, but he is not really present. He is living in some other place, ruminating about certain situations or certain fears. Right? So that way, even these thoughts can consume you. And let's say certain habits, addictions, these things become part of our life nowadays. Many people, they have various type of addictions, not only drugs or alcohol, but various different addictions are there. Device addictions are there. Certain porn addictions are there. Gaming addictions are there. So these type of things are very common nowadays. Initially, it's something fun. You get a smartphone. Initially, it's so interesting. It's something exciting for you to do. But what happens when you attend to it carelessly, gradually that exciting thing will start consuming you. You spend many hours on a screen. You spend many hours browsing social media. You spend many hours playing games. And that way, that simple, exciting thing can overwhelm you and consume you little by little, right? So you can see the key is attending to these things carelessly. Then even the words or actions, if you attend to your words carelessly, then sometimes time after time you hurt other people. Time after time you have to apologize. Time after time you have to correct the things that you have done. So this way we feel like we don't have real control over our own thoughts or actions, our own words or actions, right? So the key is attending to them carelessly, right? So this way you can see these things can overwhelm us. These thoughts, habits, actions, words, these things can overwhelm us. Initially, they come as useful tools, important things, but if you attend to them carelessly, then that very thing can start consuming you. That's the very idea. So the key word here is attending to them carelessly. What's the opposite thing you can do is simply attend to things carefully. Attend to things with mindfulness. If you know that art, if you know that skill, then these things can't overwhelm you. The, the tea won't drink you up. The life won't consume you. Right? So that's the very idea behind this insightful quote. It takes the simile of the tea, the way of the tea, and tells us a story about the way of life. Right? That's important message for nowadays we can really use in our daily encounters. So you have to attend to these things carefully. Now we are already overwhelmed. We already have many thoughts in our minds. We already have many habits or addictions formed. So, how can you start this? That's an important question because you are already overwhelmed by these things. So, how can you start this? You have to simply approach this in a formal setting. Formal setting means formal meditation. You sit away from all the disturbances. You close your eyes, make sure that your body is balanced and comfortable, and you try to attend to the present moment with mindfulness. That's a formal setting you prepare or you create to develop mindfulness. Same goes for the mindful walking. You walk in a quiet place and you simply try to be mindful of your walking body. That way, we try to approach this in a formal setting, which helps us to let go of the overwhelmed mind and develop a certain level of mindfulness. It's not easy, but if you create some space for you away from all the disturbances, then it helps you to develop mindfulness a lot. That's why sometimes people go for retreats. Or some people they find some quiet place or time for them to meditate, because the minds are already overwhelmed. So you have to deal with that initially, right? Somehow, if you find some space, if you start practicing this, then gradually you become better. We say don't go after thoughts initially. We say don't try to attend to the thoughts carefully. Instead, try attending to your breath carefully. Right? If you can at least attend to your breath carefully, then there is a potential for you to deal with complicated things like thoughts or addictions, right? But if you even can't attend to your breath carefully, then how can you deal with things like thoughts, right? So you have to start simple. You have to start with a bodily sensation. That's why we take the breath. In the walking, we take the steps. And gradually, you try to attend to your breath in a careful manner. The breath has been there since the birth. You have been walking for many decades, but you didn't attend to them carefully. You were careless. These things were happening in the background, but that they were not your priority, right? But now we prioritize these simple sensations, these bodily sensations. In a way, they are signs that you are living. The breathing is a sign that you are living. The walking steps, it's a sign that you are moving here and there, right? So that way, we take a bodily sensation and we try to attend to that carefully. Initially, it's not easy. Many people, they give up. Even probably a couple of weeks ago, this old gentleman came here and he was in his early 60s. He came from Monaragala, 3 buses, 8 hours of travel. And coming here within couple of days, he was trying to leave, saying, Bante, I'll go home and come. Right? So you can see the signs, you can see why he is leaving. So I told him, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for all the petrol that you have burned coming here. It's not worth for the bus fee you have spent. So stay at least like 10 days and go. Right? So somehow he accepted because of the devotion, and he somehow stayed for a longer period. So you can see initially when a person try to attend to these things carefully, they overwhelm them, and it's not easy to do that, right? But gradually you develop that potential. That's the important thing. Most of the newcomers, the simple advice would be to somehow continue. And even that person, after 3-4 days, he was writing good reports about his meditation experience. He was able to stay with the breathing for many breath cycles. He could be mindful of the steps for a longer period, right? So that potential is there within us, but do we dare to develop it? That's the question that you have to answer, right? So gradually you have to develop the ability to attend to these things carefully. That's the idea. You start with your breath. At least can you attend to your breath carefully? at least can you attend to your steps carefully. That way, gradually, you have to develop your mindfulness. And when you develop it, little by little, even the things like thoughts, you start to see how these thoughts are coming and going, how these thoughts are grabbing your attention, how they are taking you away repetitively. Right? So that way, in our practice of observing the breath or the steps, in direct manner, we get to deal with the thoughts as well. Every time you get distracted, you have to realize it, and with that realization only, you can return back to the primary object. So, in a way, you are dealing with your thoughts as well. Time after time, these thoughts carry you away, but you realize it and you return your attention back to the primary object. That way, we develop a better way to deal with these thoughts. Without getting consumed by the thoughts, we develop the ability to be mindful of them and even return to some other object. Right? So that way, it's an important skill on how to deal with thoughts. Many people, they give too much value to these thoughts. When the thoughts are there, they think that they will have to prioritize them all the time. But you have the option of realizing or becoming aware of the thought, and you have the option of giving your attention to something else, like the breath or the bodily sensations, even the emotions. You don't have to attend to all the emotions. That's not a rule. Instead, you realize that you have an emotion, and with that realization, you can turn your attention towards something else. Right? That way, we develop our ability not to get consumed by these thoughts or emotions. Now, let's think about things like anger. Many people, they get consumed by anger. They sometimes destroy their relationships or damage their relationships due to anger. Sometimes they damage their careers due to anger. They damage their reputation due to the anger. And even their safety is at risk due to anger. Right? So, anger, it feels like a monster you can't control. In a way, that's true. When you're already angry, it, it's not easy to deal with it. Your body can't contain that strong emotion. So naturally, you burst out. Maybe with your words or with your actions, you get overwhelmed by this emotion, right? So it's not easy to contain it. But when you develop your ability to be mindful, maybe even before getting angry, you can see certain signs of anger. Sometimes certain parts of your body is it starts burning, kind of a sensation. Or maybe you can see your chest tightening, right? So those signs are there. Before getting angry, certain signs appear in your body. If you know how to read those signs, then maybe you can divert your attention somewhere else and simply avoid such a situation. When you get angry, maybe it's too late to deal with it. Maybe it's too overwhelmed, right? It's not easy to deal with it. But before getting angry, if you read these signs in your body, then that helps. And neuroscience, they say the emotional surge of anger lasts only 90 seconds. Right? After getting angry, this emotional surge, it'll only last 90 seconds. So if you can somehow avoid the first 90 seconds, if you can somehow contain yourself the first 90 seconds, then maybe you don't have to burst out. Maybe you can approach it in a different way, right? So that emotional surge, it lasts only for 90 seconds, right? So if you can divert your attention to somewhere else, if you can go to some other place just for a couple of minutes, maybe during that time, your mind is able to see the bigger picture. Your mind is able to see the damage you will do to your relationships. You will see the damage that you might do to your career. You will see you are damaging certain other situation, right? So that way you take a small break and revisit that matter. You can see the bigger picture, right? So these are different ideas based on attending to things carefully. The key is simply attending to things carefully. If you can do it, then that change your behavior. You can approach things in a different manner. Same goes for the things like addictions or habits. We are not suggesting to quickly break these habits. That's not what we are suggesting. Instead, try to become conscious of these habits or addictions. That's a better way to do it, right? You become conscious of it. You see how this addiction is driving you. You see how it makes you anxious not looking at a phone. You see how many hours you spend while spending those hours. You see what are the important things that you are missing due to this addiction, right? So that way you don't try to break these addictions. That's not the option we have. We can simply be more conscious of these things. If you can be more conscious, then that helps to reduce the strength of these addictions, because ignorance is the key. Otherwise, attending to things carelessly, that's the key. When you attend to things carelessly, when you have ignorance, without even knowing, you are strengthening these addictions. Time after time, you are supporting that process of the addiction, right? So that's why they say you have to be conscious. That's the only task. Don't try to break the addiction. Do the same stupid thing, but at least be conscious that you are doing this time after time, right? So that way you can approach even things like addictions. Addictions, maybe they have formed over many months, even many years. So changing them, it's reasonable that they take a long time. So we are not suggesting that you quickly change them. Instead, you simply approach things carefully and see how these addictions are driving you. That's the very task. And things like, let's say, porn addictions. You see these movies or things and you get this urge to probably masturbate, right? So that's how these addictions are driven. So there's this technique, they say, surge surfing. You get this urge to masturbate, but you simply don't do it. You simply notice the urge to do it and see how that urge is changing or happening in your body, right? That urge won't last for a long time. If you can simply observe it for a couple of minutes, I'm sure that type of urge also passes, right? So this way, you get exposed to porn, but that surge surfing technique tells you not to act on it, right? Something like that. You are not full, you are not fully avoiding that. You are facing your old addiction, or you are going on that same path, but you avoid a certain part of it consciously. You avoid acting on it consciously, right? So that way you can experiment with these things while attending to them carefully. That's the very idea behind this concept, right? So basically, if you attend to things carelessly, then those things can consume you. That's why it says the tea will drink you up. It's not you that's drinking the tea. Instead, the tea will drink you up. A good example would be that phone, a smartphone. Initially, it's for a, let's say, for a teenager. If you buy them an iPhone, it's an exciting thing to do, right? So that's how it starts. You are the owner of this iPhone and you start that way. But gradually what happens is that little by little the iPhone becomes your owner. That very exciting thing start consuming you, and it'll drive your life. It'll make you waste so many hours. It'll avoid uh, doing your studies, right? So that way, gradually, that becomes the master. So it doesn't happen within a day or two, but it continues for a while, and gradually the ownership shift. Initially, the person owns the phone. Later, the phone becomes the owner of the person, right? So that way, these things are evolving and changing. So that's why it says the tea will drink you up. The tea will start consuming you. And the reason being, attending to things carelessly, right? So the idea for this practice or mindfulness practice is simply to attend to things carefully. The way of tea is equal to the way of life. You attend to the life carefully and you can manage these things much better. That's the idea for today. Thank you for listening.
Much merits, Mate, for those very insightful reflections. Very grateful, and lots of important reflections for us to think about in our own day-to-day lives as well, and how we can be more careful and less careless. So now we come to the part of the program where we present a reminder of the instructions for this program, Mindfulness for Beginners, and also read the reports that we have received and conduct a short Q&A. So let me start by presenting the guidance for this program, and then I will hand over to Anupama to read the reports and conduct the Q&A. So the guidance for this program, I'm sharing on the screen, and I will put it into the chat as well. But starts with watching a couple of videos that have been prepared by the Venerable monks at Nisarana Vanaya. One on mindful walking and mindful sitting. And these two videos provide the essential basic steps in the practice that we start with. And then the next step is to give yourself some time, some regular time, to practice mindfulness with walking and sitting, and continue this training for over several days until you have established a practice and complete at least 2 hours of each practice in total. And once you get to that, you can write down your experience. Write down a training experience report under the titles of mindful walking and mindful sitting, so having separate sections for each, and describe what you felt while walking and sitting in your report, what you recognized as your walking and sitting posture, describing the prominent sensations that you felt, maybe the pressure points on the soles of your feet, how your body weight shifted from one foot to the other. And in sitting, it may be where you've felt the most prominent sensations at your nostrils or the rising and falling of the abdomen and so on. And once you've written your reports, you can send that to us at the email address beginnersenvy@gmail.com. And we will read those reports each week for the leader of the session, our spiritual guide here, Venerable Homagama Dhammakusala or the teacher present, to reflect on and provide advice and guidance. And then you can then use that advice to continue and developing your practice and connect each week to be with us and be part of this journey. So with that, finally, I just wanted to point out that you can also listen to the recordings of each of these sessions on the Nisarana Vanaya website. So if you miss the reading of your report, you can always listen to it in that recording. So with that, I will now hand over to Anupama to read today's reports and conduct the Q&A, and Anupama will kindly be closing the session as well at the end. So thank you very much, Anupama. Over to you. Much merits.
Thank you very much, Arosha. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Today, we have one report submitted, which I will proceed to read. Venerable Swamin Vahansa, mindful walking. Walked freely few times, stood at the edges, and observed posture as a statue. Felt hardness of the floor. could feel 6 footsteps in a length. Mindful sitting. Sat and observed posture as a statue. Belly movements were slow. Risings were longer. Mind wandering occurred. Could observe 4 motions in a length. Teruwan Saranai Utum Swamin Mahansa. This is the end of the report.
Yes, so you can continue your mindfulness for some time in the walking and sitting, and time to time you get distracted. That's okay. You can realize it and you can return back to the primary object. Now, I remember someone was sharing their experience few days ago, and that person was telling that during a short time, that mind went to maybe like 20 different thoughts. So he was counting on them and saying within couple of minutes this many thoughts came, right? Initially it sounds like a complaint, but you have to understand, being that conscious, being that aware is important in the practice. Some people say that they don't get thoughts. I remember one person was saying during the 40 minutes walking time, the whole 40 minutes he was with the feet. That was his comment. But actually, that's ignorance talking, right? The mind doesn't stay like that. Maybe between the left leg versus the right leg, the mind jumped to many different objects, right? So that person's ignorance is telling that whole 40 minutes he was with the feet, right? Most of the time, we don't see how rapidly this mind is moving. We don't see where it goes. So our ignorance tells us, okay, you were with the feet all the time, right? So, but this person, he was more conscious and he was counting the number of times his attention drifted. So that's progress. You have accounts on this process, you know, this many thoughts came. And let's say 20 times he was able to be mindful that he has gotten carried away. And with that mindfulness, he returned back to the primary object, right? So time after time, we get the opportunity to realize that we have gotten carried away and return back to the primary object. So in your report, you say 4 steps, 6 steps, 4 breaths you can observe. That's enough. So after every 6 steps, you get to be mindful that you have gotten carried away and once again, return to the primary object, right? So that's the very idea of this practice. You realize that you have gotten carried away. With that realization, you can return to the primary object. In order for you to do that, first you have to be conscious that you are with a thought or you are with some future planning, right? So that way, becoming aware that you are with some other object or you have gotten carried away, you are becoming aware of that. That is the key. With that awareness only, you can return to the primary object. So keep practicing. This is the very idea. You get distracted, you get to go to other thoughts, memories, things like that. Then once again, you get to return to the primary object. So that's the way of the practice. Thanks for sharing your experience.
Thank you, Bante. And thank you for submitting the report to share with us with the valuable insights of Venerable Bante. We now move on to the Q&A session. In fact, we've got a question in the chat from Gehanta, which I will read out now, Bante. Most Venerable Bante, thank you very much for your insightful talk today. What is the relationship between awareness and self? Who is aware? That is the question.
Yes, so that's the whole journey. You are trying to figure out who is aware. Initially, you start with the object of awareness. Gradually, your attention to turn towards the person or the self that is aware. Right? Time after time, we try to see who is aware. Where is that person? Where is this self lies? Right? So that observation or that whole journey, you have to walk yourself and see who is really aware. Right? Many people, many teachings, they say there is a solid self or a soul that travels from life to life. That type of a idea is given in many teachings. It's like, you are changing clothes. Your body is like a cloth. You leave this cloth or this body, go to some other place and wear a different cloth. That type of idea. So the consciousness or the soul is traveling from life to life. That's the teaching of many philosophers. And even in Buddha's time, one monk, his name was Sati. Sati, yes. That monk was going around telling people that there is a consciousness that travels from life to life. I have been with Buddha, I know his teaching, and he teaches about a consciousness that travels from life to life. That's what this monk was saying. Finally, Buddha got to hear about this and he confronted this monk, asking, "What are you going around telling?" Then he said, "Bante, I know you are teaching. You are teaching about a consciousness that travels from life to life. So I'm telling that to other people." Then Buddha says, "Fool, who taught you that? I never mentioned about a consciousness that travels from life to life. The consciousness is created due to causes and it is destroyed when those causes are not there." That's the right view according to the Buddha's teaching. But what happens is that although we know according to the Dhamma teachings, according to the scriptures, we know that consciousness is created due to causes. When your eyes meet a sight, let's say another person, the eye consciousness is created. Right? So the causes are said to be the eyes, the sight, and some inclination towards it. Those things get together and eye consciousness is created. That's the teaching. That's in the scriptures. But when we experience this, we experience it differently. We feel like we have been living all these decades. You recall your past memories 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you feel like this stream of consciousness continues. You don't feel there's a break in between, right? So that's the issue. There's a gap between the teaching and what we experience. So in order to experience the reality, you have to develop your path. Simply you start from the current experience and you develop your meditation up to a point where you experience the reality, right? So that's the whole idea. I remember there was this young boy who came from, actually he's a foreigner. He has been practicing in some other place for maybe 2 years now. And a couple of days ago in his meditation report, he was writing in vivid details about the walking, sitting, daily activities. No issue, no gap. Everything was perfect, right? So actually, when you hear such a meditation report, you have to, in a way, appreciate the practitioner. But I didn't feel like appreciating. I told him that you are like that Sati monk. In your report, no gaps. Everything is complete. No disconnection, right? There's no gaps. You're like, there's this consciousness that is solid, and that consciousness travels from life to life. That type of approach was there in that report. So I told him, you're like the Sati monk who was having that type of a view, right? But if you are aware, if you are more conscious, then you can see breaks or disconnections in this process. Sometimes you can see past couple of minutes, you were in some other world or you were missing, right? And there are time gaps. It feels like time slips, right? So those things are signs that this is not continuous. In order to see those signs, we have to strengthen our awareness. Otherwise, our ignorance fills all these holes and tell us that you have been living non-stop, continuous for 30, 40 years. That type of a idea is shown to us with the support of ignorance.
Thank you, Bante, for that explanation. I'm sure there's a lot for all of us to take from the discussion. And to add to that, we have another question from Samantha. Bante, why do we have thoughts constantly? Is that a natural human process? And the practice of being conscious of thoughts is new habit we train ourselves. So we are in control of the present and alive than like living in a dream-like state.
Yes, so you get thoughts because you were attending to them carelessly. That was our topic. You get consumed by these thoughts because of your previous carelessness, right? So in order to change it, if you want to see breaks in between these thoughts, then you have to change your approach. That's the whole idea in today's discussion. And little by little, you can let go of these formed thoughts. These things are currently so strong. They have a lot of power. And as like, like power of habit, these things continue. So it takes time, it takes effort, but gradually becoming conscious of these things, you are no longer supporting those thoughts. And when you don't support, eventually they'll have to disappear. I'm not suggesting that that there won't be any thoughts one day. That's not the idea. But at least you'll have some space in between these thoughts.
Thank you, Bante, and thank you, Samantha and Gihanta, for those questions. Do we have any other questions for Bante today? If you do, please raise your Zoom hand and we will invite you to unmute yourself. No, doesn't appear that there are any more questions, Bante. I just have, just a thought crossed my mind about how thoughts take over. The term autopilot, I suppose, is we're trying to overcome being in an autopilot mode by bringing awareness or consciousness. Would that be a right kind of analogy for this?
Yes, autopilot mode, we can say it's more like, ignorance.
Mm.
That's how we have been functioning. And especially the repetitive daily things.
Mm.
When we are in a new environment, when we are doing something new, it demands our attention. So we give a certain attention to those things. Let's say you are driving in a new road, right? Then of course you are more attentive. You are doing something new. You are learning a new skill. And then you have to give your attention, right? But these repetitive, simple things that we do, majority of our time is dedicated for them. Those things we do this autopilot kind of a thing. You take your brush, the process will happen. You sit with a plate of food, it will somehow go to your belly, right? So that way, it's like autopilot, or in a way we can say ignorance. The the current way of doing things, but the way of tea suggests us that we should attend to them carefully. It's a tiring task because we don't feel like attending to eating meals or brushing. We have many interesting other things to do. But the whole idea of this practice, or the way of tea according to your today's topic, is simply to attend to them in a careful manner. Autopilot mode, we can say it is more like the ignorance.
Thank you, Bante. Yes, very, very relevant to our everyday lives, and it is a great reminder. And I can see how this topic today and discussion around it, if we apply it to ourselves on a day-to-day basis, we can certainly make progress. Thank you to everyone who participated today and asked questions and provided reports for discussion. And most of all, thank you, Venerable Dhammakuslutero, for your wise advice and guidance as always. We have a few minutes if anyone has any last minute questions or comments to make. I think we've got Samantha with your hand up. If you unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Thank you, Anupama. Thank you, Bhante. Just a little quick question, actually. That was just, maybe I hope it's not just, but I was just thinking, why is it that it's an effort to be aware all the time, consciousness, and it can be a bit, I suppose, the training a bit arduous, a bit boring, maybe, being the effort of trying to be in the present moment all the time. Whereas if you're lost in your thoughts, it's like a film, you're dreaming, and it's less effort. Is it because I haven't actually seen completely fully? I can see sometimes when you're lost in thoughts, there's stress there, depending obviously what you're lost in. But whereas if you bring it to the present moment, then there's peace, and it's and you feel alive, and it's quite enjoyable. So is that with lack of practice? So with more effort, if you carry on bringing the mind to the present moment, would that interest occur, be build up within myself to be in the present moment? Just so basically, why is it more effort and difficult to be mindful in the present moment than it's much more easier to be lost in your thoughts? That's what I was just wondering, Bhante. Thank you.
Yes, so it's difficult because of the power of habit. That's the habit that you have developed, being lost in the thoughts, emotions, and that is easier. And going against that current, it's difficult, right? Going against the current. So this whole path or practice is simply identified as going against the current. The way of the world is going with the current. The way of the nobles would be going against the current, right? So current of habits, addictions, we can simply say. So due to power of habit, it is difficult. But what happens is that if you form this new habit, if you train yourself repetitively, then that habit takes over. And naturally, you return to the present moment, and that works for your advantage. No matter how many thoughts come, no matter whatever the mistakes you do, your mind will simply let go of those situations easily and return to the moment. That's also power of habit, right? So we are in the process of forming new habits, and it is tiring, of course, but if you do it, then one day this new habit will take over. That's the very idea. That's why we have been discussing these things maybe for like 5-6 years now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bhante. That's really encouraging, and to be in that habit, new habits forming. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Anupama.
Thank you, Samantha, for asking that question. And yes, it's certainly very helpful to all of us in the discussion today. I think we can conclude the session today if we have no further questions. I'm just giving a few minutes to see if there's any last minute comments. Doesn't appear to be so. Once again, thank you to everyone who participated today, and Venerable Dhammakusala Thero for your valuable advice and guidance. Before we conclude, I would like to, with much gratitude, convey merit to Venerable Dhammajiva Udayiriyagama Dhammajiva Thero, the main abbot of Nissarana Vane, who initiated these mindfulness programs and gave us the opportunity to participate in discussions like this and to help further our practice. And of course, to all the organizers who work hard behind the scenes to make this happen every week, much merit to you all. And hopefully see you all again next week, same time. Wishing you a mindful week. And with that, we conclude our session for today.